वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पाठाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणं मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीं तावद्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः सुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So yesterday we saw about japa, and that is one of the ways to focus the mind and also increase the purity of the mind. The eighth step is, see, many people stop with this quietude of the mind. But quietude of the mind is not the ultimate destination that one is seeking. That is a means, and a very important means. What one is seeking is to destroy the ignorance of one's own true nature, that I don't know the self. That must go. Till then, even if the mind becomes quiet, again it will come back, again agitations will start. So the sense of finitude remains, that I am a limited entity. So Ramana Maharshi gives that example of the birds which generally fly. When a net is cast over them, then they get suppressed, so they can't fly. But how long will they remain like that? So long as the net is there, the birds will remain there. The moment that net is gone, again they will fly. Same way, using any method we can make the mind quiet. It will remain quiet for some time. Again it will start flying back to its agitations. And the feeling of finitude doesn't end. Hence the 8th and the 9th step are very crucial. Till now what we have done actually is a preparation for this main step, which is called contemplation. A very nice saying, man is limited, man is what he believes and is limited by his beliefs because he believes in the limited. That my nature is infinite is not known to me. Vedanta tells us that. Otherwise, who told us that? We always feel I am this limited entity and happiness is in the world outside. So I want to seek it from the world outside. Because we believe in the limited, we seek the limited. Not knowing that unlimited is my true nature. Limitation of the body, mind, intellect is not my limitation. So when a person starts understanding this Vedantic aspect, so the contemplation on that which is unlimited, which we call in different names as Sat, Chit, Anand or Shivoham, Shivoham, there are many ways to explain that. I am unborn, I am unchanging, I am undying. That is the nature of the self. That is my true nature. So these psychological beliefs that we hold in us, they limit us. And these psychological beliefs is what one has to undo. And hence, we need this step of contemplation on that which is infinite, not as something out there that is infinite, but as my nature is infinite. So the Vedic statement, a very famous Vedic statement is Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. That your nature is not this perishable, changing nature. Body grows, body becomes old, body dies, body is born. Mind is not born with that. Mind goes from one body to other. We saw that in the second chapter. And even mind is not there in deep sleep. Then who am I? That imperishable nature of mind which is beyond body, mind and intellect, which actually empowers body, mind, intellect to function, that is my true nature. So there was a story that there was a young person and his friend. They both went to a circus, and when the circus was over and they were moving, they went behind to see the animals and different performers and actors who are there. So they were surprised to find that there was an elephant there, lots of them, and all of these elephants, they were tied with a rope, and there was a nail which was fit on the ground. So these two wondered, how can this elephant be tied by this rope? So they called out to the person Mahout who is taking care of the elephant. He says, what is this now? They are such powerful creatures. If they want, they can just run away from here. He said, that will not happen. Why? Because when they came, they were very small and they were tied by this. And so they continue to believe that they can be bound by this. They will not even attempt. Same is the case with all of us. Mighty, infinite reality is our nature. But from childhood we are told, you are this body, you are this person, this is your name, this is your father, this is your mother. Those are actually functional attributes given to us. They are not our true nature. Suppose a wave is said, it is told to the wave that you are a small wave, that is a big wave. Is it that is its true nature? That size of that wave? No. Water is the true nature of the wave, and that water is indestructible. Now, if the wave does not know that and thinks I am only a small wave and that is such a big wave, it will have lots of conflicts. And when the wave dies, I also die. When the wave is born, I am also born. All confusions happen. So in Vedanta we always say that we must identify these limiting beliefs that we have. In psychology they use self-limiting beliefs for a very different, in a different context, where I limit myself with my potential, saying I can't do this, let us say I can't dance or I can't do public speaking. There I limit myself. That's a psychological barrier I create in my mind. I can't forgive. Or it's a psychological barrier. But the same thing we are doing in spiritual realm also. That what is my true nature I don't know, and now I am limiting myself to this. So what are these limiting beliefs? I am this body, the world is real, I am born into the world, happiness is born, happiness is from the world outside. So many of these, I have just listed a few. This individuality, Mr. So and so is me. These are my people, these are my things. So one gets attached to all of them. These are all limiting beliefs. Psychologically, they bind the person. And then what happens? That person gets deluded. Because we saw in the beginning, man is what he believes. So if I believe that happiness is in the world outside, I am bound by that. Then I will chase some power, some money, some position, some object, some person. Nothing wrong in seeking any of these. But to think that they are the cause of my happiness and without them I am miserable, that is a psychologically and spiritually not sound belief. It's a self-limiting belief. These beliefs we have to reverse through contemplation. The most fundamental are the first two. I am this body and the world is real. They are the source of all other limiting beliefs that we have. And so in Vedanta, those beliefs must be destroyed. How to do that? Through the Jnana Abhyas or practice of contemplation. A beautiful verse is there in this Atma Bodh which says that by constant practice, Ajnana Kalusham Jivam Jnana Abhyasa Vinirmalam Kritva Jnanam Swayam Nashyet Jalam Kataka Renuvat. So the example given there is, if you see the mud, in the olden days they used to do that. Nowadays also they may use in some places. When the water is very muddy, then a piece of alum is used. You move it around, and after some time, all that mud particles, everything settles down, because that alum creates that, like this kataka nut, that there is a powder. So earlier either they used to put that powder in that water or move around the alum. That creates a little thick film, and as it goes down, it takes with it all the impurities and settles down. So the clean water can be taken up. So in the same way, ignorance is the dust or the dirt which is there in our own mind. And how will that go? One has to use that powder, which is the knowledge. So Jnana Abhyas is the word used here, where 3 steps are involved: listening, reflecting, and then contemplating. And that's why Gurudev always used to tell us that meditation is the highest vocation. If I really want to meditate, I should have done all this before. Listen to Vedanta. Reflect on it, ki how is Vedanta saying that the world is not real? How is it that I am not this body? So that 3 steps are very necessary. Then I can contemplate saying, yes, I am not the body, I am that Satchidananda Atma. Otherwise one will sit and start doing Shivoham, Shivoham. It sounds very nice also, and beautiful music can be put. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, Shivoham. So nice. Only enjoying the music, but what about Shivoham? That I don't know. Which Shiva you are? No idea. So one has to do that homework before. So what is that homework? Listening and reflecting is the homework. So Shravan means to listen. Listening removes the ignorance in terms of I don't know. Till we came to Vedanta, we never knew that our nature is Satchidananda. We always thought our nature is this, and nothing else than this. So many people still, they don't even think that there is a mind which exists. One thing that only brain controls the body and it is functioning. So many fundamental doubts. Does the mind die with the body? When the body is cremated, does the mind also get cremated? So many doubts one has. That there is something beyond body and mind and intellect, no idea. And how to know that existence of that? Only first one listens carefully to the people who have experienced it and from the scripture which reveal it. So listening is the first step in Jnana Abhyas, and that removes ignorance. When I say ignorance here, it means lack of knowledge. Even when we listen, we may intellectually come to know, but we are not convinced. So reflection on that is necessary. That is the next step. Manan is called reflection. That removes the doubt that I can't understand this self. First time if you listen that you are not this body, mind and intellect, and you are Satchidananda Atma, You may even feel as though the person who is saying it is mad. How can I not be this? And the world is not real. One can't understand so easily. One has to reflect, use the proper logic, analogies given in the scriptures, and discuss with people. That's why Gurudev found our study groups, that it's not enough to just read the books. One has to understand it through proper discussion and then clear the doubts. So intellectual conviction comes to us through this proper reflection, one's own reflection and in group. And when you share it, that is the third form of reflection. So right now I am doing that, I am talking to you, I am sharing this. So that is called loud reflection. When one is reflecting for one's own sadhana, and that is the sharing process. Then that intellectual conviction comes that yes, I am not the body, body is only a tool. However glorious the body may be, however powerful the mind may be, it is only a tool. My nature is something else. This intellectual conviction must happen. That is called manana. And then comes the third stage. Because even if I have heard and I understood it with reflection, there is still one more problem, and that is I don't experience that. Because my habit for so long is I am this. Now just by intellectual conviction it is not going to change. That is where the contemplation comes, nididhyasana. The habitual identification that I am this body, because of which we feel that I can't experience or I don't experience this self. That goes in meditation or contemplation actually. This third step is what we are talking about. That when we have done this japa and made the mind quiet, with the quiet mind one must contemplate that my nature is not this body, mind, intellect. My nature is indestructible, imperishable, unborn, unchanging self. So this is the main crux actually. And that's why meditation is something which is not meant for everybody. One may come up to quietude of the mind. What next after that? Hence that eighth step is contemplation. So how do we do this contemplation? It happens in two ways, two processes, two steps. One is I have to detach from the body, mind, intellect, that I am not this. Another is attached to the self. That's why the famous passage which is Nirvana Shatkam, there first three lines are negation. Mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani, naham. I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the memory, I am not the ego. Nacha shrotra jivve, nacha dhrana netre. I am not the senses also. Nacha vyoma bhumir, na tejo na vayu. I am not even the five elements. Then who are you? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am that pure consciousness. Now to do this negation and assertion is what that earlier two steps we should have done properly. Listening and reflecting. Then in the seat of meditation, contemplation, I can actually lift my mind to that state which says that I am not this. And that habitual identification which we have can go away. This is in the domain of bhavana. This is not intellectual thinking. It is not simply repeating, okay, I am not the body, I am not the body. That is the feeling that one has very clearly when one has done that reflection. And that is what makes the person change. So Gurudev used to say that contemplation is feeling fully what one has understood and understanding fully what one has felt. That is called contemplation. Feeling, understanding, and understanding, feeling. That is called bhavana. The jiva bhav that I have must go. Intellectually I don't have to know I am the self. Lot of people think that Vedanta is intellectual. That I have intellectually understood I am the self, but I can't experience it, I don't feel it. That is because the mind is not pure and the mind is still turned outside. So this feeling part of it, I am not talking feeling as an emotional aspect of like anger, greed, jealousy, love, happiness, not emotional aspect. Mind and intellect come together and one really feels that I am not this. What is an example for it in daily life? Okay, so one may see the feeling that you have when one has risen above the toys of childhood. There is no attraction towards it, there is no aversion towards it. One knows very clearly that that stage is gone. That I am not a child anymore. Is it an intellectual thought? Intellectually I feel I am not a child, but emotionally I feel no, I am still a child. No. Both, it is together. I know intellectually I am not a child, and feeling wise also I know I am not a child. That integration comes to a person who has done the earlier preparation. What we saw in the 6th chapter, all that preparation when it is done, sense control, positive attitude, all those things, no fanciful imagination, all those preparations when they are done, the person will come to understand that I am not this individuality. Very clearly. There is no contradiction in what one is thinking and what one is feeling. Today the contradiction exists because the preparation is not enough. And typically that happens because we keep reading a lot. Suppose there is a Gita and you are attending this Gita talk. And you may read another 20 commentaries on the Gita also. There is nothing wrong in reading. But how much of it am I actually ensuring that I am living by that principle of Karma Yoga? I am actually living by self-control. I am not falling a victim to my own senses. If I am doing that, then automatically I lift myself away from the false identifications. And to the extent I do that, to that extent this bhavana comes to us. That yes, I am not the jiva. I am the individual self. For some of you this may be a little subtle to understand at the moment. Maybe you are just getting introduced to it. Slowly you will understand. At the moment it is enough to understand this much, that with a quiet mind what I need to do is this process where I negate what I am not and I assert who I am. Not exactly similar, but a similar analogy is, suppose somebody has forgotten their, let us say, psychological memory is gone. Functional memory also is weak. So the person doesn't know who one is because of maybe some shock or some accident or whatever. Now how will that person come back to who they are? One will keep telling them, no? You are such and such person, this is the incident, this is what happened in your life, this is how you were. And if the person is behaving not according to their age or according to what they were, then you will say, no, this is not you, but this is you. Something similar is what we are trying to do. Saying that this is not me, this is a tool, equipment. And so in the contemplation, this is what one does. One chooses a small passage or a shloka. One has to memorize that. Like we just spoke about Nirvana Shatkam. So maybe one shloka or two shlokas. If all the 6 you can memorize, very good. Otherwise even one is enough. But memorizing is necessary. Because if I have done all this preparation and I have sat quietly and withdrawn the mind and the senses and everything, and then in that quiet moment, if I have not memorized it, again I will open the eyes and open the book. All the hard work gone for a toss. So I need to memorize. It need not be a Sanskrit passage. It can be even an English statement. So one has to memorize that and repeat it slowly. And feel what those words indicate. One must lift the mind to that state and let go of everything else. So when the mind is lifted to that state, be in that state. That will undo the wrong notions. So if I am saying Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, slowly I lift my mind to that state. My nature is consciousness. I am not the thoughts that come and go. This talking I am explaining right now. In meditation you don't have to do talking. You don't have to tell yourself, look, thoughts are coming and going. I am consciousness which is enlivening it. That all has finished already in reflection stage. You lift yourself and feel that yes, I am that consciousness. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Emotions come and they go. I am watching. I am just a witness. Again, if the mind starts talking something else, again come back to that. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. This process has to be repeated again and again and again. This will actually destroy ignorance. And that person becomes free. So if there are any association of words, ideas, pictures, colors, don't pay attention to any of them. It is a good thing to do. Even you can apply this even to internalize values. If you don't identify with the self and contemplation at the moment, even if you want to internalize a value, let the mind become quiet and then repeat that. Let us say, 12th chapter in the Gita, Bhagavan says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha. It's one line. That I can repeat to myself. Adveshta sarva bhutanam. That I have no hatred towards any being. Now I can lift my mind to that state that I don't hate anybody. No dvesha towards anybody. Maitri, I am a friend of everyone. Karuna, if somebody has hurt me, I may not be able to be friendly with them, but at least let me have karuna for them, compassion, and let me forgive. So these three I can just tell myself. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha. Repeat this 5-6 times and not like a mantra. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha. But I have to repeat mechanically. Feel what it says. It is talking about a state of love, a state of complete compassion for everyone, no hatred towards anybody, and lift the mind to that. Automatically the person whom you hate, that person's picture will come into your mind. When you say, I don't hate anybody, you say, no, but I hate this man. I can't stand this man. Except that man, everybody I will love. That picture will come. Don't feed that thought. Say, I send loving vibrations to that person also. And again, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana. So this can be applied to internalize values also. And if one is ready, this can be applied to internalize the nature of the self. This is the way to actually transform from the depth of one's own subconscious and unconscious mind. If you see in hypnotism, what they will do? Similar thing. Mind is made quiet and then slowly one thought is put in the mind. And that thought, whenever the mind is quiet, whatever you put inside, it will go deep. And that thought will be said also in a specific way, not in a normal tone. Slowly. And a specific tone also it is said. And that person gets used to that tone, that speed, and that totally the person is getting deconditioned with the old thought, and a new thought is taking root. So same thing we have to do here. where we allow the thought to go into the mind that I am not the body, mind, intellect, I am the self. So some examples we have given here. I have given Sanskrit ones. You can use in any language, any poem or any write-up which makes you aware that you are not this, but you are that. A lot of Upanishad mantras can be used. Nirvana Shatkam. Vivek Chudamani has 10 very nice verses. Each line ends there with Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavaya Atmani. That you are that Brahman, meditate on that. So like that there are different passages. I have just given you a few. Brahma Jnanavali is Asangoham, 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 Punah Punah. Detached am I, detached am I, detached am I. 3 times it is said. Why? Detached from the body, detached from the mind, detached from the intellect. This practice one has to do. This is called contemplation. So when one does this, when one has started repeating the passage, lift the mind to the state conveyed, the last step is just be a sakshi. Stay as the witness. Who is a witness? Witness is an uninvolved, unaffected observer, is a witness. So who is the witness in me? Thoughts come and go, emotions come and go, consciousness is the witness in me. And when I abide that I am that pure consciousness, that I say that I am the witness. Everything else comes in me and goes. Hence it is said, Aksha means to see. Sa Aksha means to see clearly. What am I seeing clearly? I am seeing clearly that my nature is not the body, my nature is not emotions, my nature is not thoughts. They come and they go. I stand apart. This witnesshood is what is called as Sakshi Bhav, where there is no interference. You don't do anything with the thought. If a bad thought comes, you don't suppress. If a good thought comes, you don't encourage. No resisting, no indulgence. So there's a nice acronym for it. Rivaj. Rivaj means a custom or a habit. And these are 5 things which we do by habit with our mind. Either we resist the thought, no, this thought should not come. Or we indulge in a thought, such a nice thought. I feel so much of love for everybody. I think I am becoming more and more an incarnation of love. Don't encourage that thought. No resistance, no indulgence, no verbalizing. Nice meditation. I think like this, if I meditate for another 10 days, over. Goal is accomplished. No verbalizing, don't verbalize. No analysis. Why this thought came? This thought has never come to me in my life. And people are very special. I said this last time also, I think. That they come and ask, Swamiji, can we keep a notepad and pen next to us when we meditate? Why? Because thoughts which we never have thought, such wonderful insights come to us at that time. We want to immediately write it down. Don't analyze why this thought is coming, from where it is coming. Just leave. And no judgment. Because this thought came, I am a bad person, or I am not progressing, or I am progressing very well. No judgment. If I can do this, where I do not resist, do not indulge, do not verbalize, do not analyze, do not judge. Leave a thought to itself. It comes, it goes, it has nothing to do with me. Today I define myself only as a thought. My whole life is my thoughts. Sakshi Bhav is be a witness. No attachment to thought. Whatever is that thought. Suppose a donkey comes here, what will you do? Show him away. Will you sit on it and go? I am not saying it, but Mahatma gave that analogy. That गधा आता है तो उसके ऊपर बैठते हो या उसे जाने देते हो? So he said, thoughts are like that. Why are you jumping on them? They are coming, let them go. Even if a pet comes whom you love very much, will you sit on that? No, it just comes and goes. Same way, just the thought comes and thought goes. And if we can watch it, it is over. Because by itself it is temporary. We don't have to do anything to a thought. Thought of anger. Suppose you don't feel the thought of anger. Will it not die by itself? It will die. Hence this Sakshi Bhav is the highest, most powerful spiritual practice is Sakshi Bhav. I have to do nothing. And to do that nothing, everything else has to be done. But I can sit quietly, doing nothing. And that's why the most difficult thing to do is sit quietly. We find it difficult to sit quietly even physically and verbally. We are not talking about only physical and verbal. We are talking of the mind. Let the thought come, the thought go. How does it matter to me? That is called dispassion towards the thought. It comes, it goes. So when we say Sakshi Bhav, it cannot be actually practiced. If the mind is pure enough and the person comes to that state, whatever thought is arising, one has no attachment to the thought. One will stay apart and I am conscious, and that clarity is called Sakshi Bhav. So this is the last step. In the sense of effort, this is the last step. No effort is to be put here. Just watch. Automatically you come to the silence, which is our nature. As peace, as happiness. Not silence of the mind or peace of the mind, but that which transcends the mind. So Gurudev used to tell this, when the last thought is thoughted and no more thought is thoughting, that is the stage. And he would always say that don't worry about the grammar of this sentence. There is no other way to express this. Last thought is thoughted, meaning there is no desire or thought anymore waiting to arise. Because you are not interested in any of them. Last thought is thoughted, gone. And the next thought is not going to arise. That moment of complete transcendence of the mind is the purpose of meditation, and that state is actually called meditation. Where I abide as consciousness, not as the thoughts, not as emotions, not as any of the physical sensations. So that state is called as Shiva, the most auspicious. And you would say, let Shiva happen. One can't force that. One will come to it slowly. So these are 10 steps to lead to that state of meditation, where one knows oneself as one is and not as defined by the mind, defined through thoughts. Those are limited expressions of our equipment. So having said this, we said yesterday about Om, that we will use Om to do japa and meditate, contemplate on that Om as one's own nature. That my nature is that pure consciousness which is Om, in which waking, dream, deep sleep, they come and they go. So today we will do that. You can switch off these lights. Just leave this light on. You can remove it. Yeah, leave it. If you have brought your mala, then hold the mala in your hand. One important instruction is that the mala typically should not touch the ground. So the best way to hold the mala is like this in your hand. You can't see, no? Jagdish, just put on the light behind there. Bas. Yeah. So just hold it like this. Right hand. Your right hand is parallel to the chest and you are holding it like this. Bas. Keep it close so that your hand has support of your chest. It is not hanging like this, otherwise it will pain. Just keep it close to your chest and the hips and hold the mala like this, close to your heart. So that way the hand also has support and the mala also has support. Right. Sit erect, head, neck and the spine in a straight line. Close your eyes gently. Let your feet be firmly on the ground if you are on the chair. The feet should not be hanging. Place them firmly on the ground. One hand on your knees or in your lap, palms facing the sky. Come to a comfortable posture. Have a gentle smile. These are beautiful moments of meditation we are going to spend. This is the first step, preparation and posture. Second step, auto-suggestion. Suggest to the mind that for the next 20 minutes I am steady and still without any movement. A still body is important for a still mind. So first auto-suggestion is I am steady and still without any movement. Second auto-suggestion, I am quiet, alert and awake. Mentally tell yourself that I am quiet, alert and awake. Third step, be aware of the happenings around you. Without any judgments. Be aware of the sound, the feel of the ground below your feet, the chillness or the warmth in the atmosphere. Fourth step, be aware of your body. from the head to the toes. Let your breathing be slow, steady and deep. And as we say the part of the body, relax that part. Feel that part and let the deep breathing relax that part. Be aware of your head, the neck, shoulders, shoulder joints, the left hand completely from the shoulder to the fingers, right hand from the shoulder to the fingers, continue breathing deeply. Relax the chest, stomach, the navel, relax your entire back, the spinal column, upper back, middle and the lower back. Be aware of your hips, hip joints, both the thighs, the knees, the ankles, calf muscles and the toes. We have visualized the whole body. Feel as though you have risen above the body and you are watching your own body as a tool. Let the breathing be slow as I say inhale. And feel that the whole body is filled with light. And as I say relax, exhale slowly. And let go of all tension, stress and strain. Exhale on the air. Inhale. Relax. Inhale. Inhale, relax. Inhale, relax. Inhale, relax. continue to breathe deeply and slowly. This is the fourth step and the fifth step, relaxation and deep breathing. In the space between the two eyebrows or in your heart, visualize a circle of white light as clearly as you can. A circle of white, pure, brilliant light. And invoke the auspicious form of Om. Visualize the form of Om. The formation is like the number 3. With a trunk-like formation on the right side, a crescent, moon and a dot above it. Om is the manifestation, the form of the Supreme Lord. It is not just a symbol, but represents the Creator, the Lord of the universe, from whom everything arises, in whom everything stays, in whom everything merges back. Visualize that you are in front of Om, the Lord. We invoke the Lord in our heart. Please repeat the shloka. Omkaram bindu samyuktam nityam dhyayanti yoginaha kamadam mokshadam chaiva Omkaraya namo namaha. So we are invoking the Lord as Om, on whom the yogis constantly meditate. The Lord is the one who fulfills all the desires as well as grants moksha. To that Lord in the form of Om we prostrate. So have the bhav that the Lord is in front of you. With all devotion, we will take His name. As you chant the name, you can turn one bead. We will not chant together. You can follow my speed. We will chant loud and fast. and then slowly increase the pitch and tempo and slowly reduce it and make it mental. So please follow my pitch and the speed. Om. Do not elongate, just follow the same duration. Om. Om. continue mentally. Om is the pure consciousness in which the waking, dream and deep sleep, they come and go. It is the pure consciousness which is my nature. I am one with Om. I am not the thoughts. I am the Om that is a witness of the thoughts. I am not the emotions, but the witness as Om. I am not the ego, which constantly changes. I am the changeless awareness, which is Om. In me the whole world arises, stays and dissolves. I am that pure silence in which all sounds arise and dissolve. Be a witness. Do not do anything with the thoughts. Stay as the awareness. And you can watch the thought rising and falling. Om is also the Lord, and I am one with the Lord. We pray to the Lord that by His grace may we experience this oneness and wake up to our true nature. Mentally offer some flowers to the Lord in the form of Om. Prostrate to the Lord in front of you. And let us pray that may everyone be healthy, happy and fulfilled. prostrate to the meru of the mala, touch it to your eyes and to your heart. Fold the mala in your hands or keep it aside. Slowly rub your palms and place them on your face and gently open the eyes.